Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my ranty discussion on Mass Effect Andromeda. So I've been putting out this video for a while because I knew it wasn't going to be that fun to film, and it wasn't that fun to film for me because this is my favorite series, and this video game was not that enjoyable for me. But here is the look that I did, so if you want to see me create the look, this isn't really about the look. As I said before in these videos, I'm not a makeup artist, and I'm not doing this for a tutorial. I'm doing this to just get ready, chat with you about things like video games. So, let's get into it. This video's been a long time coming. I haven't wanted to film this video because it's not going to be a fun video for me necessarily. Will it be very cathartic? Yes. But it's not something that I wanted to do. I wanted to film a video talking about how much I loved Mass Effect Andromeda, and that opportunity was stolen from me. So now I'm a little irritated. As of the filming of this video, it's been about a month since I finished the game. I finished it about 2 weeks after it came out. And I've just been so disappointed during that time and like mad about it that I just didn't even necessarily want to talk about it. But it was also getting to a point where I knew I was going to start like just forgetting things because I'm blocking it from my brain because of the trauma. So I figured it's time to talk about it. I've done other discussion videos on BioWare games. I did one for Dragon Age, which is why I did one for this, because people were asking if I would do one for this. So here I am, sadly, and if you want to watch the Dragon Age one, I'll link on the screen. This is going to be another long one. Yeah. So first off, as many of you know, I am a huge fan of BioWare games, but most specifically the Mass Effect original trilogy, the franchise. It's one of my favorites of all time, and I love everything about it. I love it more than Dragon Age. I enjoy Dragon Age, but I still don't love it as much as Mass Effect, the original trilogy. I find the trilogy to just be perfection, even from its flaws. Just from a story writing standpoint and from a character standpoint, those characters are my quintessential characters, and I love them. So I've been very excited about Andromeda, and I kept away from a lot of the hype from it. I didn't watch any videos, I didn't watch any stuff when the, like, beta, you know, kind of, well, not beta, but, like, when people started playing earlier, I didn't watch anything that they had to say about it. I had heard that there was some stuff being said about the animations, but ultimately I was like, you know what, I don't care. BioWare isn't necessarily known for, like, the most realistic animations anyway, so that's not why I play the games. Like, the animation, which I will talk about, but the animation isn't my biggest gripe with the game, even. It definitely contributes, but if other things about the game were fixed, I wouldn't be disappointed. I'd be, like, I would have been fine. But because it wasn't fine, that just adds to the list of things that I felt were wrong with it. So, when I started playing the game, like, I only watched the trailers, and I thought the trailers looked fine, and were good, and I was excited. I didn't really know anything about the characters, and whatever. So I first started playing the game, and I get into the character creator. And that was the first thing where I was like, what? Because I'm somebody who will take, like, hours to create a character in a game, especially when you look at comparing it to Dragon Age Inquisition and the character creator in there. That is so in-depth and detailed, and you can just minutely decide all these different things about just placement of everything on the face, and then you go to this character creator that was absolute garbage. And there were so few things you could choose, and the hairstyles were just bad, and it was just all around bad. By the way, I'm going to be doing a, like, blue, I think, eye look, because I think it fits, because I'm going to be talking about the Asari and how they were done so dirty in this game. So I was like, I should do a blue look, but I don't do blue looks very often, so I'm probably going to spend a lot of time being like, what should I do right now? Anyway, so get into the character creator, and it's like, wow, you can't choose anything. Half of this is just, like, anime hair, which is fine, but is also like, can you give us a ton of other options? Like, I don't care about any of the skin tones. I know some people came out and were like, oh, you can't be pale enough. That's not a problem, because, really? Like, that's what you're gonna complain about? My complaints are, like, the lack of, like, hair, the lack of eyebrows, because eyebrows are very important to me, and you can't do anything with the eyebrows, and the scars. So, one of the things is, like, I love creating a character who is more, like, battle-hardened, or, you know, like, is more of a badass and blah blah blah. Like, in the original trilogy, I played Paragade, so, like, that was my style. So I like having characters that have facial scarring. These scars were so, like, is that paint on them? Like, what is that? Like, there was a couple that were like, oh, that's great, whatever, but, like, they didn't really make sense, and they didn't look right aesthetically on the face. There were even characters in-game that had some of that scarring on them, like NPCs, and you were just like, that doesn't even look right. What is this? And it just looked dumb and shitty, and just like the over-the-topness of how you could make the characters look was just weird. And like I said, when you compare it to Dragon Age Inquisition's character creator, you're just like, why did you backtrack to making it not as in-depth when you have that character creator being so good? So why would you go back and make it like this? Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And so that was the first thing that was like, okay. And I know that Dragon Age and Mass Effect are made by like different teams or whatever, but still, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So that was the first thing, but I was like, you know what, whatever. So I started playing, and like you get the big speech from like Dad Writer, you know, and I was like, oh, this feels so in line with like the original trilogy and kind of carrying on that legacy. Awesome, fantastic, I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah. And the animation is horrendous. Like, the animation is really bad, and I know that they've done patches, but they did a patch after I was already done playing. So I was like, fuck you guys, you should have fixed this before, and everyone's talked about it, so I'm not going to talk about it that much in depth. But they should have fixed the problem that they had before they released the game. They should have delayed the game. They shouldn't be releasing stuff as patches, because that just punishes everyone that bought it when it first came out. The people who are your loyal fan base. Like, why would you punish those people for buying the game early? Like, now that makes me really not want to buy, and I will, because of course I will, but like, it makes me not want to buy future BioWare releases, like, as they're released, because are you gonna do a patch again? And then just make it like a wholly better, you know, experience after all the fucking patches? Like, no. So that's really obnoxious. And again, it's like, well, it's your own fault, you should have just waited, but like, I shouldn't have to wait. Like, and I don't want to be spoiled, because there was even stuff that was coming out, you know, spoiler-wise, very soon after it was released, because people got it early, blah, blah, blah. So I don't want to be spoiled because I didn't buy it right away. And yeah, so that was the thing. And yeah, the facial animations are horrendous. The fact that writers' facial expressions were just like very blank after her dad died, so obviously I played Femme Writer, because duh. But after Dad died, her face is like, it's like, we're not going to have any emotions, and like, that was probably one of the more emotional parts of the game, and I couldn't have cared less. And I know that like BioWare always does the like, I mean, I knew before even going in that her dad was going to die, like, of course he was, like, that was being set up from the get-go that he was going to die. But there was no emotion there. There was no emotion there. And even like with her mentioning a couple times throughout the game of like, oh, my dad died, but it's like, you guys weren't even close, and you showed no emotion when he died, when he like sacrificed himself for you and whatever. So like, who cares? Who cares? I don't care. I certainly didn't care. So that was upsetting, because the whole thing that I like, one of the things, I mean, I'll say that numerous times, one of the things that I really like about BioWare games is the emotional investment that you have, is the emotional impact, and how connected you feel to the characters. So to have the character just being like, Dad's dead, was really disappointing. But the game made it feel like you were supposed to care more, right? Like, it's like, oh, look at this happening, and you're just kind of like, the character doesn't care, so why should I care? Because the character is barely showing any emotion. And when she does show emotion, it's all kind of like fucked up because of how bad the animation is. So then you get Sam in your head, and I love AI. I do. AI is like some of my favorite shit. I love AI characters. Edie is my precious baby from the original trilogy. Like, she's so great, and I just like the whole discussion around AI. But how annoying was Sam as an interface? Like, sometimes he's helpful, but Edie, in my opinion, was more helpful because she could come in and out as needed. How many times do you need to tell me, like, temperature dropping, temperature rising, over and over and over again? Like, the amount of things that he just says to you over and over when you're walking around in game is just like, wow, this is fine a few times, but can we not have it constantly? Like, you constantly talking to me about, like, temperatures or condition is normal or blah blah, especially because it changes so often. So I don't need to hear this. Like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Maybe at the beginning of the game it would have been helpful as like a tutorial type thing, but don't keep saying it to me like a nagging mother. It was so annoying. So I feel like mostly Sam's just annoying. Like, he's helpful, I guess, sort of, sometimes, but like, I didn't feel a connection to Sam either, and you feel like you should have this connection to this character who's literally in your head. But he doesn't have a personality the way that, like, Edie has a personality. He's just kind of like a computer that's there, and he's supposed to have a personality, you're supposed to feel this way, and that's one of the things about the game that's so disappointing, is you're supposed to, and you know that you're supposed to feel a certain way about these characters and about the stuff and the way that it's being set up, and you just don't because it wasn't well done. So then the other thing, as predicted, you have your sibling in a coma for the majority of the fucking game, which was so irritating because the whole thing with the writer twins and whatever is like, your sibling and your dad will be playing a huge part in the world. They kept saying this over and over to people because people were like, wow, looks like your whole family's gonna die because we've played other BioWare games, we know what they do. And the creators are like, no, they're playing a huge part in the game and they're gonna have their own story and they're gonna have their own thing. And Scott's in a fucking coma for like the majority of the game. When does he wake up? Right before the final mission, basically, and then he gets pulled into that and like that's a thing. But again, you don't have this like sibling bond because you've never seen them and interact with them. So like why do I care? And I would always go back and check on him and be like, is he up now? Like, what is he gonna go do? Like, what's going on? When can I talk to him? And it's like, you know, he's just in a coma the entire time, being worthless the entire time. It's like, don't market the game, and that's the part of the thing too. Don't market the game one way and then have it be another way. Just to have it like, to throw us off the scent, you know? That's basically what they're trying to do. They're like, oh no, they're gonna be a major part of the game. No, they're not. Don't lie. No, they're not. And like, maybe he'll play a part in like future games or whatever. I don't know. Because what else are they even going to do with the future of the, like, Andromeda world, you know? Who knows? But don't promise one thing and then give us another. Because that's another prevailing problem with this game, is all the promises they made and then didn't follow through on. You get to the first, you know, Prodromo kind of outpost, and then you go on and you finally find the remnant tech. And I'm like, wow, are these fucking Prothean ruins? Because that's what it feels like. Oh, there was this mysterious race that used to be around that had these really advanced ruins and really advanced tech and blah, 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 blah. We don't know what it is. And oh, so it's like Prothean ruins. Great. So original. It's not like we've had this before. So that was irritating because it was just like, okay, like the vault thing was fine, whatever, but like, again, it's Prothean ruins. So it's just like, I've done this before, and yeah, you haven't had this advanced of like a system, whatever, but the whole like mystery around it and people digging up Prothean ruins and stuff is just like, okay, we've done this, we've had this kind of storyline, and so when you have, and then you have the character supposedly used to dig up Prothean ruins back in the Milky Way, except for she doesn't really talk about it that much. It's brought up a couple times, and that was the other thing, is like, I understand they were trying to make a game that was separate from the original trilogy in that you didn't have to play the original trilogy. By the same time, there's a lot of times where that was lacking and you almost did, or they were trying to like allude to stuff from the original trilogy or whatever, or give you this connection to the original trilogy, but it's like you haven't played it, or they're making it so removed from the original trilogy that it was like failing, because it was like, okay, regardless of if you played the original trilogy, these characters should still feel some kind of connection to the Milky Way because that ultimately still is their home, and they're not. They're like not talking about it at all. There was probably 3 lines of dialogue in which you could talk about the Milky Way at all, and the character has like lackluster reactions to it, and it's like, this isn't realistic. Speaking of that, the dialogue options in this game were just not good, and I didn't need to necessarily have Paragon and Renegade options. Like, I'm really fine with the dialogue wheel, for example, in Dragon Age Inquisition or whatever, but I do feel that having this many dialogue options made it so your character had a very inconsistent personality that you couldn't really track as well. And so I didn't, even if I answered majority a certain way, I still didn't feel like my character was necessarily answering in the way that it was saying you were going to. Like, it was, what, emotional, professional, logical, and casual or sarcastic or whatever. And the casual sarcastic wasn't even always casual and sarcastic. And like, it didn't correlate with what you were supposed to be getting across, so I never really knew what to pick. And again, she had a very just inconsistent personality, and I feel like even my Inquisitor had a better consistent personality than Ryder did. Like, I have no idea about Ryder. I don't feel a connection to Ryder personality-wise because she was so all over the place, and even in my best attempts to not make her all over the place, she was. And so I hated the dialogue, and not to mention that the dialogue is incredibly cheesy. Oh my god. And like, not that it needs to be great all the time, but like a lot of it is just so bad, and whenever I would like say something, I'm like, that's not what I want to say. That was true of just like canon, you know, dialogue or, you know, stuff that you picked or whatever. Like, the dialogue in general is just really cheesy. And I watched another video where somebody else mentioned this, that the dialogue of all of the characters and even the banter and stuff doesn't match the severity of the situation. So, like, these characters, you know, arcs are missing and they don't have home worlds or whatever, and they're just like, la-di-da-di-da, and it's written almost like a sitcom, and it's like, this isn't cute. And there was some stuff that was funny, like, I laughed in some of the banter and stuff. Like, I really like crew banter. Like, that was fine. But it wasn't the, like, the banter, like, the existence of the banter that bothered me. It was the fact that it was just really poorly done and made the characters seem like they're brushing everything off and that this is all just, like, we're all just having an adventure. And it's like, yeah, but, like, this is pretty serious, guys. And, like, it just doesn't match the severity of their situation, which makes you just want to roll your eyes at all of them, because you're just like, whoa, dude, shouldn't you guys all be, like, a little more concerned about finding homeworlds and stuff? Oh, and one of the things that, made me so annoyed is that, yes, these games are very, like, human-centric, right? But especially with this, it's like, you know, we're all forging, like, new worlds or whatever. We still have everybody worrying about finding a home for Earth. You know, Ryder keeps saying that, like, we're trying to find a new home for humanity. And it's like, what about half your fucking crew that aren't human? And all the people that you're trying to find that aren't human? So why don't you say we're trying to find a new world, just period, or trying to find a new home, period, not like a new home for humanity. I know you're the human pathfinder, technically, but, like, your entire crew, for the most part, aren't human. And this isn't just about humanity. So it's just really off-putting, and not in, like, a, what people called it, like a imperialistic type sense, because I didn't really get that overall from the game, but I got the, like, humanity, and it's like, yo, there are a ton of other aliens with you that you should be concerned about as well, like, and you're basically the only pathfinder for the majority of the game, so can you not? And speaking of aliens, I am so disappointed in Andromeda for the new aliens. Like, completely disappointed. I love the Angara, I think they're amazing, but you took away some of the complexity of the alien races from the original trilogy, because a lot of them aren't there, right? So, like, a lot of them, you know, didn't come with, like, the Drell and the, well, you guys all know who all didn't come with. But a lot of the, like, four-legged aliens didn't come with, and that's my thing about, this is a complaint I have about sci-fi in general, but sci-fi games especially. And I understand why they do it, but most of the creatures, or aliens, or whatever, are bipeds. That doesn't really make sense. That everyone's biped, and everybody uses guns for the most part, and everybody apparently has similar or matching sexual organs, because I'll get to that in a second with, like, that whole thing. Which almost makes sense if you're in the same galaxy, but doesn't make sense if you're in a whole new galaxy, whole new, like, everything. So you take away some of these more complex characters, and, you know, these more, like, either floating or, like, multiple limbed aliens, and you only add in more bipeds, and it's like, there wouldn't be any other aliens, like, and you just add the Angara and the Ket basically are Angara, or, like, you know, so they're not, and they're like an invading alien species, so it's like, Andromeda doesn't have anything else besides Angara, and they're bipeds, and have basically the same kind of things that everybody else does. Cool. Not cool. Like, I just really was hoping that Andromeda, with all its new worlds and all its new aliens, would have more of a plethora to choose from, and it didn't. And that was really disappointing. I was looking forward to meeting a ton of new aliens, and we have barely any. And like I said, I like the Angara. The Angara are fine, but they're nothing in comparison to, like, you know, the Drell and the, like, Elcor, who I love so much, and, like, all of them, like the Hanar. The Hanar are a very cool alien species, even though you don't get a ton of them in the original trilogy. Like, they're around, and it's like, why can't we have, like, and crew members that are, like, those kinds of aliens? Like, why can't we have a character who doesn't use guns, doesn't use weapons, especially because in this game you can't even customize your crew members' weapons. So why can't we have a character that uses, like, psychic blasts or something and doesn't have arms? Like, give us some variety here, people. It's a video game, you can create anything. And that's the thing, too, is like, okay, So if you want them all to use guns, like, why does it really matter? Because you can't customize anything about the other characters. So, like, that was so annoying. So I'm not a huge, like, I don't need to customize things about my characters. I actually think that it made things a little bit easier to just kind of run through without having to customize all those things about the characters. But why do you focus all this stuff on, like, crafting and getting all of these points and getting all of these things so you can research new weapons when it's like you're only going to use probably, like, one weapon type? So what does it matter? And if you had everybody else that you could change weapons for, then that makes it worthwhile. But if your character's only using, like, pretty much one or two, then what is the incentive to get all these research points? I didn't use, like, hardly any of my research points once I got the high enough level of the stuff that I wanted. And they did the whole cool thing about, like, oh, you can mix up your, like, fighting styles and you have the new profiles, you can switch between them. But ultimately, I think most gamers are going to pick the one that they're familiar with and kind of go with that. Pick the one that matches their playing style. So, I don't know a lot of people that were necessarily switching up profiles for stuff, because you're not going to know what to pick, necessarily, and it was just like, that was just, it was a cool concept, but I don't think it was executed very well. So, I didn't have any need to have all of these different weapons and stuff with me, because I wasn't going to use them anyway. I will take a break for a second to, I didn't do this very well, I have my foundation on here, and I'm like trying to hold this up. Don't drip on me, please. I will take a second to talk about actual things I did like about it, you know, so I can break this up into not just bitching completely. The combat system was fucking boss. Like, it made me so happy. Like, I had so much fun with the combat. So, as you may know if I've talked about Mass Effect before and you watched a video where I've talked about it, I live for Vanguard. Vanguard is the build that I love and that I was most excited to rebuild, even though they were like, oh, we don't really have things anymore like Vanguard and blah blah, and I was like, as long as we have Charge and Nova, we have fucking Vanguard. And of course they're like, you know, they do have Vanguard profiles. But I was like, that is all I care about. So I dumped everything into just, you know, like, Biotic so I could have Vanguard and Nova doesn't drain your shields anymore, so hell yes. So I just dumped everything into that. And there was really nothing more satisfying than just being so incredibly OP and just being able to charge and Nova the shit out of everything. Like, I only carried a shotgun, and that's what I do anyway. That's what I did in, like, Mass Effect 3 and 2 and stuff. So I only carried a shotgun, which means that I had really crazy high rates for recharging everything. And obviously I got, like, higher points to be able to recharge and upgrade all that kind of stuff. And then I was able to charge a Nova, like, just back to back. Just back to back to back to back to back. And one of the most fun parts for me for the game was being able to fucking charge an Architect. Like, that was so much fun. Like, if I could have charged a fucking Reaper, do you know how much fun I would have had with my life? Like, that was so fun. So I really liked the combat system. Even though, you know, the weapons don't really matter because, you know, I'm only having the one type. I'm only upgrading my Vanguard, upgrading my shields, and, like, my health and stuff. And then I just really didn't need to use any of my points after that. But that's fine, yo. I have some foundation on my pants. It's fine. You can't see them. So I lived for the combat. I thought that was a ton of fun and just, like, very seamless and great. But it's like, that doesn't make up for the rest of the game. And I don't play the game for the combat. So since that, like, isn't my main point and my main, like, motive for playing the game, it didn't matter that the combat was, like, really great and really fun, ultimately, because it's like, that's not why I play. So all of the other problems, you know, vastly outshone the success of the combat. Like, for example, how shitty were these villains? Like, oh my god. So the Ket are... You can't have the Ket after you have some of the best video game villains ever, which are the Reapers. Like, you can't have the Ket follow that. And then you have the Ket doing predictable things that happened in the first trilogy. Like, what? So when they're, like, turning people into Ket, you know, they're turning Angara into Ket or whatever, it's like, oh, like the Reapers turn everyone into Reapers? I've seen this, and I've seen it done better, because it's more chilling to see a person that looks like their race turned into a Reaper. Like, that is way more scary than seeing just, like, a bunch of Ket. And the whole thing, too, is, like, before the game came out, they were like, oh, we're gonna make the Ket sympathetic. It's like, nothing about them was sympathetic. They weren't good villains. We don't really know their motivations. It's like, oh, wait till, like, later games, blah, blah. But, like, you can't have a similar storyline and then be like, oh, wait until later. No, you made the same storyline that you have with the original trilogy. They're turning people into themselves for domination and wiping out extincting, you know, races. That's what the Reapers did, but the Reapers were 1,000 times cooler. So that just pissed me off. And I kept waiting. You know, I gave it a chance. Like, I waited until the end of the game before being, like, really mad. Because I was like, what if they flip this around? What if it's not like it looks? What if it's actually a little different? Blah, blah. But it wasn't. It wasn't at all. And, like, even, you know, what was the... I'm forgetting now, because it's... I blocked it out. But, like, the main, you know, bad cat guy, like, his fascination with, like, you know, the remnant tech or whatever. It's just like, this has been done, and even he wasn't an interesting villain at all. He was just like, you didn't really understand his motivations. And obviously you see that there's like a greater plan at stake, and that the other cat are kind of different and want something else, potentially, and that he was kind of falling out of favor with the cat or whatever. But it's like, he's not interesting. I mean, you've had other really interesting villains within this franchise. Like, how are you gonna give us this, like, B-list, repeated storyline? It was a repeated storyline. It was very, very similar. You barely changed anything. What the hell was that? Which made it so boring and so predictable, because it's like, oh, they're taking Angara. And I was like, they're probably turning them into cat. Like, duh. And it was just all a story of, like, look at how hard the Angara's lives are. Which is like, yeah, that's fine, but it's like, and again, it's because you had them as your, like, main alien, so it's just like, it was all focused on the Angara, and I like the Angara, but it was like, this is just, I've seen this, and the Reapers are 1,000 times better and more interesting. What the hell is this? It makes me not even interested to know what, like, the rest of it is. Like, yes, will I play the future games? Obviously. And will I be excited for them? Yeah, because I hope that they fix a lot of what people have, like, outcried about. You know, people are pissed about this game. So, like, I hope that that inspires them to, like, do better. But, like, I don't really care. I don't really care if I see Ryder again. I don't care if I were to play Ryder again. I don't have any connection to Ryder. I don't care. And that is deeply upsetting to me, because I love Commander Shepard. In fact, after I finished Andromeda, I spent a week just, like, thinking about Commander Shepard and how great she is and how great the characters were, and just being, like, very emotional over Commander Shepard because I'm obsessed. But, like, I should have been thinking about that game, and I just wasn't. I was like, wow, how great was the original trilogy? You know, like, how amazing was that? And how shitty was this? Like, it was just, oh, it was just so upsetting. The storyline was so shitty. The storyline was so shitty. And just a repeat. And just phoned in. And didn't really even make sense. It's like, why make the same story? You have the creativity to do so much more with this. Why make the same story? We've seen it. You couldn't think of anything else? In a whole new galaxy, you couldn't think of anything else. We've seen this mysterious race that used to be around and suddenly isn't, but left all their tech and all their stuff around. That was the Protheans. We've seen it. We've seen this race that is coming and trying to conquer everybody. That's the Reapers. We've seen it. The Reapers are 1,000 times cooler and 1,000 times scarier. I am the vanguard of your destruction is one of the coolest fucking lines ever said by a video game villain. What the hell is this? The Ket were lame. They were so lame. It was not... Oh, I was so pissed. Like, do not tell me you're gonna make this, like, really interesting villain and then make them shitty. And I don't care at all about them. What is this? And getting back on track with the whole, like, what was this with the aliens and stuff. I love that they make people romanceable. I love that you have romance options. I ultimately, in my head, feel that Jal, Sarah, and Vetra are in a polyamorous relationship. They are my OT3. But why does everybody's genitalia match up? Why do we have sex scenes? One, why do we even need to have sex scenes? Like, full-blown, like, nude sex scenes. It's just, I don't prefer that anyway. But why do people's genitalia match up? Why do these sex scenes show them in, like, human sexual positions? Why? How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense? And it's the whole thing of, like, oh, penetrative sex is the only kind of sex. But, like, it doesn't actually make any kind of sense that you'd be able to match up your genitalia in order to have sexual relations that's penetrative. At all. Like, so I romanced Jal this first playthrough. I was going between him and Vetra. I wasn't sure what to do. Ultimately just went with him, because I felt like his romance was a little, like, richer. You were getting more with him because of the whole story was revolving around the Angara. So I ended up romancing him. And I'll talk about that in a second. But the main thing is, like, you have their sex scene, and they're in a human sexual position. And I was like, you're from a different galaxy. How is this possibly working? Like, I can maybe say, like, everyone from the same galaxy would have similar, like, genitalia, but based on evolution, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can kind of argue that maybe. You're from a completely different part of space, like, no. And they basically have human bodies with, like, a little, like, the Angara have, like, basically human bodies, like, because there's that scene where you can see him, like, naked, you can see his butt or whatever. And he just has, like, a weird, like, chest and head thing, but other than that, it's like, oh, you have a human physique. It's so unoriginal. And, like, the Turians look 1,000 times cooler as, like, having a human physique and everything. Same thing with the Quarians. And the Drow. We've seen this. We've seen this. Like, what? Give me some creativity, BioWare. Like, God! I'm not pissed off about this or anything. You know, it's no big deal. I'm not mad about this game. Like, I'm getting even more rage, and this is why I didn't even want to do this video, because it's, like, not fun to bitch about your favorite franchise. Ugh. So, here's the just shame with Jal and how his character was done too. I think a lot of the characters were fairly weak in here, honestly. Like, I don't really think about the characters. Again, I don't think about Sarah, which is a shame because it's like, that's Ryder, that's your person. Shepard, I think about still on almost a daily basis and, like, have shed genuine tears over. And Ryder, like, I just couldn't really care less. And then all the crewmates, like, I just didn't really care. They were either caricatures or just, like, they had really shitty dialogue, or they were just very one-dimensional feeling to me. And it was just not that great. And even, like, I wanted to romance Vetra, but all Vetra really talked about whenever I talked to her was her sister, and it's just like, we've done the sister thing with Miranda. Like, I don't need, and, like, you didn't really change it up that much, and it's just like, I don't need to hear about this all the time. It's like, it's not cool to talk to you about anything romance related when, like, this is all you're gonna talk about. Is that selfish? Probably. But I think if I ever play the game again, because I'm sure I'll play it again eventually, but if I ever play it again, like, I probably will end up romancing Vetra because maybe she'll be ultimately what I prefer anyway. Because I'm so sad about Jal. So I like Jal as a character, and I really appreciate that the Angara are, like, this race that is very sensitive, and, like, they're a very, like, community-based race and whatever. But some of Jal's strongest moments were at the beginning, and they didn't make it so that he was a complex character, really, especially within the romance. They make him turn into, like, this little squishy bean, which is fine. Like, I liked that he was a sensitive bean. Like, I like that. But give it to me in small doses and don't give it to me, like, all the time. Because one of my favorite things about the Garrus romance in the original trilogy is that you have this character who can be, like, a dumb nerd in love, but can also be this incredible badass. And that, like, he's a little bit different in private and, like, you know, but is also just, like, a nice guy and just, like, a giant nerd. Like, I just love him. Like, he gets flustered when he talks to you. Like, I love Garrus so much. And you have Jal as a character that could have been that kind of complex character, but then they just water him down and turn him into this bowl of jello as the story goes on. At the beginning, some of the best stuff with him was when my favorite scene from the game, completely, is when he joins the crew, he gets on the ship, and they're all in a cutscene and they're talking about him. And I think Vetra turns around and is like, did the translator chips not work or whatever? And he's like, he's sitting in shadow, and he kind of glares at her with what looks like he'd be picking his nails, but, like, he's not, but, like, that kind of boredom, and he's like, they work. And it's great! And it's great! And he, like, you know, sasses back to you at the beginning and stuff like that, but then when he, like, starts to get with you, he turns into this, like, bowl of jello that's just like, you're the most wonderful, beautiful creation ever made, and I just blah, blah. And he sends you, like, love notes and all this stuff. And even, like, the stuff where his mom sends you, like, letters and stuff, which are very sweet. But, like, it's so sickly sweet, and I do not dig sickly sweet romance. Like, I just don't. And so that over-the-topness of it was just kind of, like, towards the end I was like, oh, did I make the right choice? Like, it's just like, this is too much. And the thing is, so far that I've seen, and this is one thing, too, that shows you how much I just didn't like the game, I haven't gone and watched all the other romances, which says something, because in every other playthrough of a game that I've done, I've gone through and watched the other romances that I didn't do and that I don't plan on doing. So, like, ones that I'm interested in but that I just wasn't going to play myself. So, I've gone through and watched every other Dragon Age Inquisition romance besides the ones that I play, which are Cullen and Solus. So, that's something that I do that I like and that makes it enjoyable and whatever, because I'm not going to play the game, like, 12 fucking times to play through with everybody. I don't even care, so I haven't watched any of the other ones. But from what I've seen, every single one gets, like, a happily ever after, and I know that some people like that, but I think it's incredibly unrealistic that all of them are like happily ever afters and none of them are angsty at all. Like, seriously? Like, some of the best things about the romances and some of the other games and BioWare games and stuff is that they can be really angsty. People love the shit out of the Soulless romance because it's angsty as hell. And like the Cullen romance is super cute, but it still isn't like, Cullen doesn't turn into, he turns into a nerd, but he doesn't turn into like this little squishy like falling all over themselves in love with you person. Like, he's just a super cute baby and I just love him. But like, it's different, and like some of the romances shouldn't work out perfectly, or they should be back and forth, or they shouldn't be just like insta in love, I want to be with you forever, we're planting things together and we're like gonna make little alien babies. Like, no! No! No, I want some complexity there. I want some of the relationships maybe not turn out as well. Like, I want that. And this was just, and I know that not everyone's gonna complain about that, but like I am, because I want more to it than that, and I want more substance than that, and I just didn't get it with like any of the romance options or anything. And Jal could have been just so much more, and he wasn't, and it makes me sad. And like, I don't care that like my characters are together. Like, I like them, I've reblogged some stuff about them on Tumblr, but like, I haven't looked for them the way that I still look in the Shikarian tag to like cry, and I want to launch myself into the sun when I see images of them. But like, I don't really do that with any of them. And shipping is a big part of my enjoyment of something. So the fact that I'm like not even remotely attached to it is just kind of like, well, that's disappointing. I mean, I liked the friendships. I liked, you know, Drax, and I liked Vetra a lot. Like, I love the way Lady Turian and stuff, but they just didn't compare to the relationships you had with the characters in one. And I know that you have 3 games to love all of them, but even within the first game I feel like you got more connected to everybody, and then in the second game especially, and like the loyalty missions in this didn't even really feel like loyalty missions. Like, I didn't really like care that much, and like I felt like my decisions didn't matter in the way that they even matter more in Inquisition, you know? And like, I didn't feel like things mattered, and things mattered in Mass Effect, the original. Like your decisions made a huge impact on things, and they just didn't matter in here. Maybe they'll matter in later games. Like, obviously in 1, could you really predict if things were going to matter? I don't know. I feel like things like what you do with the Rachni Queen and stuff, like, you know that's going to matter, right? And in this, you're just like, I don't know what's going to matter. Also, this is a completely, I'm sidestepping and talking about characters again. How is it that one of the best characters in the game is a character that's not even a fucking crew member? Like, how is Reyes Vidal not one of your crew members? What an injustice. How do we have Dorian Pavis's bisexual space smuggling brother not part of your crew? That is an injustice, and that could have been one that was kind of angsty. Like, I know you can potentially, you know, like, choose that one, but again, you end up, like, happy in the end anyway. But his was a little bit, like, oh, you know, like, angsty, potentially. But, like, I would have romanced the shit out of him if he was on my crew, but he just wasn't, and he was, like, the most interesting character! And you potentially could miss him in the game, depending on how you play. You could miss that character in the game. What? What? Like, why don't you replace some of the lame characters you have on your crew? Like, it's just annoying. Like, there's so much potential. Like, I liked that you had, like, Suvi with her, like, religion and stuff, and I liked that we have, you know, like, Solarians and stuff like that on your crew, and I like, you know, we bring all this stuff in. But again, I feel like if you haven't played the original trilogy, you're not even going to know the importance of a lot of that stuff. You're not going to know the importance of any of the relationships and how all these characters, like, interact, and the significance of things with, like, the Solarians and the Turians and the Krogan. Like, you don't really get it if you haven't played the original, but there's so much, like, that's connected to the original. So it's like, choose. Does the original matter or does it not? Because I can't really decide from the signals that you're sending me. Also, one of the only times that I had some anguish over a choice was when you had to choose between saving the Solarian Pathfinder or saving Drax's crewmates, and I had a lot of anguish over that. But it's because I played the original series. If I had just gone into this, I wouldn't have cared about Krogans or Solarians. Like, I wouldn't have had this investment in either of them. Where I was anguished. Like, I probably took like 10 minutes to decide what I was going to do. And but you wouldn't have cared. Like, that's not the success of this game. That's the success of the original, you know? Like, but I wouldn't have cared at all if it hadn't have been for the original setting down everything and me, like, you know, curing the genophage and having Morden on my crew in the original and everything else. Like, I wouldn't have any impact with that whatsoever. The storyline of this game sucked. Another thing I liked, before we're done, is I really liked the worlds. I think the worlds were beautiful. The world animation was gorgeous. Like, I liked Havara was my favorite, but like, all of them looked good, all of them had, you know, different creatures and stuff, but not that different. Again, you could have gone farther with that, but the animation of the worlds was gorgeous. So you took all of your animation power and poured it into the worlds and then poured none into the characters who you're going to see more anyway. Like, it didn't match. Like, currently I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn, and the worlds are gorgeous, but the animation of the characters matches the animation of the world, so it doesn't look like it's kind of disconnected, and I felt like in Andromeda it looked kind of disconnected because they were two very separate looks. Just since I'm finishing up my little Asari kind of look, the injustice of how shitty the Asari looked. The Asari had some variety in the original trilogy, you know, so they can look different. And the Asari are also hot as fuck, okay? Like, it's just the basis of their breeding and everything. Like, they're just gorgeous. So when I see pictures of my wife, Liara, and then I see the new Asari, one of them being voiced by Natalie Dormer, who's like the hottest woman in the world, and I'm just like, excuse me? Like, Liara in 1 looks better than any of the Asari looked in Andromeda. And that was what, when did that game come out? Like, 10 years ago? What? How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck up the gorgeous Asari people? How do you make it so we can see inside the mouths of all the Turians and you can see their, like, weird glowing tongues? Why? Why was that a decision that was made? Doesn't make any sense. Who made that decision? I wouldn't have made the decision. Wanna know why? Because it's stupid. So yeah, the worlds were fun, the combat was fun, the romances are like fine but generally pretty lame, and why isn't everybody in space bisexual? I don't know, like why was Jaw made to be straight? He kind of reads as straight, honestly, if I'm being serious, but also like why would characters in another world relate to our gender norms and our like sexualities even? Like, shouldn't it just be all kind of fluid and whatever? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. It is just incredibly uncreative. Like, haven't we gotten past this? Things were getting so much better, even with, like, 3 and all of that. It's like, why backtrack? Why backtrack? It's lame. So, then we get to the final mission, which is all just kind of a culmination of everything. So, you find out that your mom's not actually dead, which is just like, you don't really care because, you know, you don't really have a connection to your family anyway. So it's kind of like, okay, cool, your mom's not dead. Great. Awesome. And your brother's finally up, like, okay, cool, and your brother gets stolen, but it's like, who cares? And, you know, you have that whole, like, BioWare slowdown, you know, another character, you know, whatever. You have some of those things that are just, like, classic BioWare things. Wasn't that fun. And then, just to culminate everything, like I said, you have it so it's like, oh, look at this battle where everyone's coming together, blah, 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 isn't it so great? You should feel so badass, you brought everyone together, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, don't try to recreate the end of 3. And act like I'm gonna care. Like, no, you haven't done anything with this. Like, okay, so there's this whole thing when you're on the one planet where Meridian is, and you are seeing everybody kind of like fly in. So you're seeing the Solarians fly in, you're seeing the Asari fly in, there's this whole scene where the Asari are doing their like Asari biotics thing, and it's supposed to be all badass and cool, but you don't care because you don't have a connection to any of those characters. You don't know what the Asari can do because all you're told about the Asari really is all of Korra is just talking about them, and you don't have any connection to them. So, like, the game failed in that way, too, because it didn't want to be connected to the original trilogy. It didn't want to have anything to do with it. But it also relies on your feelings about the original trilogy to try to make these scenes very badass and impactful. It's not the same. It's not the same as when everyone's coming in 3 and they're all coming in to defeat the Reapers. It's not the same. You haven't earned that. You don't know the history of these people. You don't know the history of these races. You don't know the history of anything. Your character hasn't really earned that. How has she earned some of their trust? Oh, I guess she's sort of gotten back a couple of the arcs. But, like, it doesn't really matter. You don't have all of the Pathfinders really interacting besides a few times at the very end. You know, it's not the same as, like, when Shepard did everything that she did to bring everyone together to defeat the Reapers. Like, it's not the same. You don't know anything about them. You don't have any connection to them from this game. But you're relying on the impact that you have with them from the previous games in order for you to try to have some kind of connection to them. So poorly executed. I couldn't care less about that final mission. I was just like, okay. And you know it's going to be fine because they didn't do the classic BioWare before the end of battle you know, before the end scene, you're talking to your whole crew thing. You know, like that happens in mostly every BioWare game where you can go and talk to everybody and you kind of say your goodbyes, whatever. I knew everyone's going to be fine in this. There's no sense of people are going to die or people are going to go, or there's no, like, sense of peril or seriousness or anything with the whole game. This should be a really serious situation, and there's none of that. I didn't feel any of that throughout the entire game. I was like, everything's going to be fine. Everyone's happy and in love. And everything's gonna be fine. Even though it's like, well, all the worlds are fucked, and we don't understand any of this, and whatever. But, like, it doesn't matter, because you don't feel that impact at all. I end up choosing the Moshai as, like, your, what is it, like an ambassador or whatever, but even that didn't feel, like, super, super important. I guess in future games it'll, like, kind of depend on how people feel about you. And again, like, one of the other cool scenes with Jaw was when you have him going up against the, what are they called? Kind of like rebels, but they're not rebels, like the other group. I forget, Roshar? Was it Roshar? When he gets, like, shot or whatever and he gets his scar. But that doesn't coincide with everything. Ugh. So everything with the Angara is just kind of like, okay, yeah, like, I'm gonna choose them because, like, obviously it's their world, you know, I'm not gonna, like, cut them off or whatever. But even that, like, didn't really feel super, super important. I guess it's as important as if you choose Anderson or the other guy in the end of 2 to take over for, like, the council or whatever. But, like, the story of the original trilogy is so damn good, the entire thing, and it just gets better and better. The connections that you have to your crewmates in 2 and 3 especially are just so good, and the loyalty missions are just, like, feel so important and impactful. And even, like, with 2, collecting your crew and then doing the loyalty missions, like, you're so invested in these people. And the same thing with, like, Inquisition. Like, you get them and then you know, doing their loyalty mission stuff, you get really invested with all of them, and I don't feel any investment to any of these characters. Beyond the fact that I just, like, love Turian, so I love Vetra in general. And, like, Jaal's fine, but, like, as I played the game, I started to like him less and less, and he's my romance option. Like, it makes me so annoyed. There's not any one thing that they could tweak to make better. They tweaked the animation, but, like, they didn't even tweak it necessarily enough, because it still just looks over the top. And there's nothing you can do to just, like, fix the story, because the thing about the Ket is dumb. The stuff about the Remnant is, like, dumb and very Prothean-esque. Like, the dialogue is pretty bad. There's no connection to the original series, but then they make you feel like you should have a connection to the original series. It's not good. I really hope that we don't play any of the Ryder twins the next time around in the next game. I know before the game came out they were saying that, like, they're kind of going to do what they did with the Dragon Age series, where, like, every game is a different protagonist, and I hope that happens, because I think I just would be annoyed to see Ryder again, because I have no connection to her. But at the same time, it's like, you don't even have a character with a consistent personality. And, like, I don't know, there's a whole post going around Tumblr that's, like, basically making fun of Ryder for being, like, the opposite of Shepard and being, like, somebody that would wear, like, Crocs, seriously. But, and while that's true, it's just like, how do you go from Shepard, you don't even make him exactly like Shepard, but how do you go from Shepard, who's just, like, a boss, experienced protagonist, and that's the thing, too, like, some people probably really like Ryder as, like, somebody who's growing into their abilities, kind of, but you don't even have her really learning that much. She just gets Sam and just is cool because of Sam. Like, you have Shepard be a boss regardless. Like, yes, Shepard's crew and Shepard's ship make Shepard even more cool, but, like, Shepard's a badass, has been tried in battle before the game even starts. So, like, Shepard is a believable character and a believable, you know, like, savior of people, where, like, Ryder as the Pathfinder just kind of like, you don't even know what you're doing. And I'm a fan of, like, space nerds not knowing what they're doing. That's kind of what happens in 2. Like, they all don't really know what's going on, and they're just trying their best, you know, and they're going on a suicide mission. But, like, with this, like, you're just like, I don't believe that you're a badass. Like, I don't believe you're not. Like, you're a badass because you have Sam. Like, nothing about you screams badass, and it kind of needs to for this kind of mission. And, like, yeah, it's all supposed to be a scientific mission, and it's not about military, and blah, blah, blah. But, like, then don't make this whole game so combat-focused, and don't make it be about, like, invasions and defeating people if you don't want your main character to be a badass. and like try to convince me they're badass, because they're not. Ryder's not. They're not. And all of the crew members just pale in comparison to the original crew members. And I was willing, like, I knew I was probably not going to like Andromeda as much as the original series. Like, I knew that. I love it so much. I knew that there was very low odds. You know, I was going in with realistic expectations. I honestly was. I thought I would like it. The same that I liked, you know, Dragon Age Inquisition. I really like Inquisition. It's not my favorite of the BioWare games, but I really like it. As soon as I finished Inquisition, I started replaying it with a new character. I was thinking I would have the same potential to do that with Andromeda. I was planning on playing Andromeda for like 6 months, just like replaying it. Like when I was playing the original trilogy, I was actually playing 2 games at a time of the same game to just be able to experience everything, especially when we were doing our most recent playthrough when I played through with the girls and stuff. I haven't picked up the game since I finished it. I haven't wanted to pick up the game since I finished it. I reblogged a few things on Tumblr, mostly related to Reyes, and then I've been done. And I've mostly been reblogging stuff about the original trilogy. Like, if anything, this has just reignited my fire for Shepard in the original trilogy. Like, I am just so much more gung-ho and like, look at how badass and amazing this series was. Now that we have Andromeda be, in my opinion, a failure. Like, it would be the equivalent of, like, if it was a book, I would rate it 2.5 stars. Maybe 2 stars. Because, yeah, the world was cool. The world building was cool. But, like, you didn't do much with your characters. And you didn't make your characters really that sci-fi-y. And you just, I've said it. I've said it numerous times in this video. The storyline sucked and it was a repeat of the original, but shittier. The villain sucked and was a repeat of the original, but shittier. Most of the dialogue was shitty, and it felt like a weird, like, rom-com slash sitcom. And it was dumb. And the characters were mostly forgettable. How do you do that when you have the Mass Effect trilogy, which is such, like, a just memorable characters that people still think about, that I still think about, that I've started replaying the series again now since finishing Andromeda, because I've been like, I miss these amazing, wonderful characters. How does that happen? It makes me so sad, honestly. Like, I don't want to be upset about this, and I am. I really, really wanted to enjoy it, and I didn't. Will I continue to play Mass Effect games? Absolutely. I'm hoping they learn from this experience, and they're going to make it better in the future. I hope that in the next game, you can play a badass if you want to. In the last series, you know, you had Paragon and Renegade, and you don't necessarily need to have Paragon and Renegade options, but you had options to do stuff that was, like, super badass or just super, like, ruthless, and you didn't really have any options for that in this. You didn't have the options to create, like, a very different character each time, and I miss that. Like, even though I didn't do a lot of the Renegade options because they're brutal, I want the ability to do that. I want to be able to play a more angry character, or a more badass character, or whatever. I want all those different options, just like you even have in Inquisition, where you can play, like, a different character each time. Like, I want those options. I want crewmates back that I can really care about and get attached to. I want romances back that are more realistic, that have a variety of options. You can have happily ever afters, you can have it end up, you know, shitty and angsty, or whatever. Like, I don't necessarily want Jacob's back, where, like, he cheats on you and it's shitty. Like, I don't want that level of shitty, but I want, like, the, like, Solus and versus the, like, Garrus versus the Thane versus the, like, Cullen versus the Morrigan versus the Cassandra. Like, all of them feel very different. And these were all like, you're gonna end up super happy. And I'm like, that's fine, but, like, not every time. If anything, this has just made me think a lot, too, about, like, when are they gonna announce Dragon Age 4? Like, I have more faith, I think, right now in the Dragon Age creators than I do in the Mass Effect ones. I know the Mass Effect ones, there's all these excuses for, like, they were a new team, or they outsourced the animation, or whatever, but, like, there's no excuse for the amount of errors they made in this game. So I have more faith in the Dragon Age team right now, which is just, like, sad, because Mass Effect is my shit. But as soon as I finished the game, I set it down, and I was like, I don't care about any DLC for this, although I'll play it, and I'll buy it, because I'm trash, which doesn't really fix anything, but whatever. And when are they going to announce Dragon Age 4? And they're not even close to anything about announcing it. And I'm like, this year's E3? And it's like, no, because it's probably not going to come out for at least 3 years. But I just want to be there. I just want to be in Tevinter, because that's where it's going to be. And I hope the next Mass Effect game is good, even though we're not going to get it for, like, what, 5-6 years? Great. It's going to be like 2022 before it comes out. And I'm gonna be like really salty and have the lowest expectations, and hopefully it'll be great, and they'll change a lot of these things, and they'll bring back all the races that I want to see again, like the Drow and the Quarians and everything else, and bring back other races that are new and creative, and not bipeds that use only guns. And maybe they'll make the Ket somehow better, but I doubt it. I mean, they've already laid the foundation of it just being shitty. And a repeat of the last game. Well, the last trilogy. I miss Shepard with my whole heart. I've been very emotional about Shepard and how great she is for my whole life, but it got even worse after Andromeda. I miss Commander Shepard. I miss the Normandy. I miss the crew. I'm not going to buy any fandom-related merch for Andromeda. I'm just going to keep continuing to buy N7 stuff. Like, even in the game, I'm almost done, I swear. Even in the game, I bought N7 or Pathfinder armor because I had the N7, like, stripe on it. Because I can't let it go. But it's not that I can't let it go, it's just that that is so much better. I was willing to let it go. I was going to let it go. If Andromeda was good. And its own story, and new and good, with complex characters, and it wasn't. God damn it. So that is it for my Mass Effect discussion rant. I wanted to be more of a discussion, but it ended up being more of a rant, because I really can't think of many things about the game that I liked. Like I said, I'm not replaying it right now. I don't know if I will ever. It makes me sad. I've been very sad about it, which is why I haven't wanted to film this video. Because I like filming videos that are fun. And this overall wasn't quite that fun to film. Here's my close-up of my eye look. I hope it reminds you of Asari's, because that's what made me do it. And I miss my Space Kids, my original Space Kids. And I'm about halfway through 1 right now, playing Mass Effect 1. So, I can see them again, because I love them. Why is the animation in Mass Effect 1 better than Andromeda? Will I ever not be mad about Mass Effect Andromeda? Nah. So comment down below and let me know what you thought of Mass Effect Andromeda. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.